Welcome everyone to Steve Savant's Money, the name of the game. I'm your host, Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist and money color commentator. On today's show, correlating retirement planning with Index Universal Life. Part 5 in our series on Index Universal Life Insurance is an emerging asset class with nationally recognized retirement expert and certified financial planner, Chris Jacob. Welcome to the 5th segment.
Thank you, Steve.
Chris, you know, there's only 4 things left on the code. I mean, I'm telling you what, we're down to 4. I could take HSA distributions, that's free. I could take reverse mortgage, that's free. I could take Roth IRAs, that's free. And this area here, cash value life insurance done correctly, I can take that free. Everything else is not free. So when we go to teach in a consumer audience, we tell them the 4 because don't memorize everything else. Just memorize these 4 and everything else is a taxable event. Now, I want to ask you about this. When we're using universal life as an asset class, and I'm using it as either retirement supplement or my full retirement supplement, I am paying no taxes if I'm taking policy loans on a contract that's TAMRA compliant. And what I mean by that, if you're saying, what's that, Steve? There are rules we have to obey, and the word TAMRA is part of a law that we just have to make sure that we actually obey it when we're actually putting money into the contract, staging it in. Once we clear the hurdle of what the regulations tell us we have to do, then that money can come out tax-free. Now, I want to know, first of all, in Universal Life, TAMRA compliant, where you can take the loans out free, do I have any RMDs?
You have no required minimum distribution whatsoever.
So it's not treated like a qualified plan?
You never have to take any money out.
Okay, so I can let it ride?
Correct.
Okay, I can take it out anytime I want, whenever I want?
Without any penalties, prior to 59.5, after 70.5.
No, we're still talking policy loans, right?
Still talking policy loans.
Okay. So there's no ERISA regs 59.5 or 70.5. That's what I just heard you say.
The government doesn't have anything to do with this other than telling me how much I can put into it without making it taxable.
Okay, now I'm taking my money out, and I know that my qualified money counts against my Social Security income. I also know that any other taxable account that I have, whether it's in a CD, a non-qualified annuity, that all counts against my Social Security taxation. If I take policy loans out of this contract, do I have any problems? Is this also includable in the provisional income test for Social Security?
It is not. It is a complete stealth income item. It doesn't show up anywhere.
So when I'm talking about taking all my money out, no ordinary income tax?
No ordinary income tax, no state income tax, no alternative minimum tax preference item.
So no RMDs, and it doesn't affect, this product doesn't affect Social Security taxation.
It's like taking out a loan against your house. It doesn't show up anywhere. It's like taking out a loan for your car. That money doesn't show up anywhere on your tax return.
All right, so just to put it in consumer language. So if I wanted to go ahead and borrow from the equity position of my home, I'd go to the bank. They say I'm a good credit worth, risk and so forth. I go and get a HELOC loan. So I get it. I write a check. I don't put that over on my 1040 and report that I had income from that because that's a loan against my equity.
Correct.
So are you saying is that the same in the same spirit? Is that the same for the life insurance?
It is. And as we talked about that sea change in loans back in 2012, when I go and I borrow that money from the bank against my house, the bank's going to look to my house as collateral, make sure I'm a creditworthy borrower. They're going to loan me that money. It's not going to show up anywhere on my tax return. Okay. I still get to live in the house, and the house can still go up in value if property values appreciate. And I tell people, think about the same thing with this insurance policy loan, the newer kind, the participating loans. I go to the lending institution, in this case the insurance company, I want to borrow money. Well, much like the bank would look to my house as collateral for the loan there, for the HELOC, the lending institution, in this case the insurance company, is going to look to my cash value as collateral. And if I got $100,000 in cash and I want to borrow 40, they're going to say, okay, you're good for it. We'll loan you the 40 from our general account. We'll use your 100 over here as collateral. So that 100 is still working for me, getting credited with the index. And if the loan rate to borrow is, let's say, 5, and the index credits something more than that, I made money off of borrowed money. It's the only place I know you can actually do that.
Okay, so when I'm taking money out of my home, there's not going to be any taxable event. We're doing the same basic thing with our cash value insurance. We're tapping that loan against collateralized cash values. I mean, that's basically what it is.
That's it.
Okay, now when I'm doing that, and I don't have any ordinary income tax, I don't have Social Security tax, you said one thing earlier that was really suggestive, and of course, remember, now this could all change with the tax code. The I heard that the corporate tax code is going to stay the same, or it's going to be changed. No more corporate AMT. But the personal AMT is not going away at any time soon. No. I want to tell you this little thing. I want you to respond to this. I have a client that's loaded in municipal bonds. Over $500,000 of his $1.4 million is in municipal bonds. I don't think I need to have a psychological degree to figure out that this guy does not like taxes. No. Okay, so I noticed on page 2, what happened here? This guy's got an AMT charge, or an alternative minimum tax charge on his municipal bonds, which I thought were tax-free.
Yeah, they might be state income tax-free, they might be federal income tax-free, but they're not AMT tax-free. It's a preference item for alternative minimum tax.
Oh, I love the word, preference item. Okay, so I told him, I said, let's find out which of that batch of your municipal holdings is the preference item that's causing this AMT to be triggered. So we searched it out, talked to his bond seller, the guy who sold it to him, figured it all out. Of course, he was very displeased that this wasn't mentioned to him, that he actually, now he's paying AMT, which is a form of ordinary income tax. All right, yeah. All right, now, but here was the freak out, and I want you to comment on this. But all of his municipal bond income, even though the part that was tax-free, flows over to the provisional income test for Social Security and is included in the calculation to find out if your benefits get taxed. Yeah, how can that be?
Most people are surprised to find that Social Security, that was a tax in the first place, based upon provisional income, Social Security benefit can be taxed, and it can be taxed up to 85% of your Social Security benefit can be taxed. And things like that AMT preference cause your Social Security to be taxed. Mm-hmm. And if it wasn't there, like it's not with a loan from a life insurance policy, I'm not subjecting my Social Security to that tax.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to the investment asset class thinking. I have my investment asset class. Municipal bonds falls into a classification of itself as well. I'm looking at index universal life. My income from that tax-free via policy loans is not going to cause an AMT issue, and none of that distribution's going to fall over to my provisional income test for Social Security like this municipal bond does.
There's tax-free and then there's tax-free.
Now, I noticed that you like tax diversification. This is another reason why you need to look at IUL, right? Index Universal Life. It's a tax diversification tactic. We have people that have qualified plans. That's all taxable. We have people that have non-qualified annuities. That's tax deferred. But we're talking about here tax-free. So I need to have a little bit of everything so I have some maneuverability during my retirement to make my income statement and my taxes kind of agree.
No, true, because if you think about this life insurance as an asset class that has no tax consequences, zero's your hero in a down market. Steve, if I'm in retirement and we have good years like we've had here in the market recently, when's the only time you want to take money out of equities? When the market's up, right? I want to play with the house's money. Certainly do that. Yes, there will be tax on those. What happens when you have a bad year like 08 when everything's down and you still need money? Why sacrifice the opportunity cost on those investments, take them out in the down market, now they can't rebound, where do I go to get the money? This other bucket over here that I have, that's the life insurance bucket. Furthermore, think about this for a moment. Let's say my bogey in retirement is $150,000, and going forward in their new infinite wisdom, they have a new higher tax bracket that kicks in at $100,000. Well, certainly take my $100,000, out of my taxable accounts, but in order to not hit me into that next tax bracket, I'll take $50,000 tax-free against the value of my life insurance policy. So I always ask people this question. When you retire, do you want to be in the highest tax bracket or the lowest tax bracket? Guess what most people tell me? They want to be in the lowest. I say, think about that for a minute. And they go, oh yeah, I guess that means I wouldn't be making much money, would I? No, you want to be in the highest tax bracket. You just want to pay the least amount in taxes.
And you're kind of forced down that line. I'm thinking, I love what you just said. Very important. During the time that we're having a down market, I don't want to, because of the sequence of returns consequence, which would be negative, I want to move to another asset resource, which in this case would be Index Universal Life, because then I don't have the same sequence of return issues.
Sequence of return is not a risk while you're accumulating money. It is a very real risk when you're distributing the money. And this other bucket, this other asset class, Indexed Universal Life, can go a long way toward mitigating and possibly even eliminating that whole sequence of return risk issue, because in a down year, as you recall, our saying, zero is a hero, I would then take my money from that indexed universal life policy.
Well, Chris, I want to thank you for doing this series on indexed universal life insurance as an emerging asset class. And keep in mind, before moving forward with any of our ideas on the show, always check with your tax consultant, legal counsel, and your financial advisor. You've been watching Steve Savant's Money, the name of the game.